I've followed the channel for a while and wanted to share something that happened to me. My doubts mainly come from the lack of evidence because beyond my testimony, I don't have anything else. Therefore, knowing that these topics are often made fun of, I decided to keep it private. But today, beyond all of this, I want to share it because I realized from other testimonies on the channel that many people went through similar or even worse moments. Proofs we seek or long for aren't always possible. Because I believe that these manifestations, or whatever you want to call them, happen at times and in situations where it's difficult or impossible to record them in any way. Either because we don't have the equipment or maybe it's just complicated to capture it. Or also because when it happens, our attention is focused on trying to understand what's going on more than anything else. I hope my point of view is clear, and with that said, now I hope you'll listen to and enjoy my story. I'd like to start by telling, just to begin this story, something happened to me while I was driving on the road and I didn't fully understand it at the time. But later, after listening to someone else, everything made more sense.
And so I was traveling to San Juan, from Santa Fe to San Francisco by highway, and almost 40 kilometers before reaching San Francisco. The weather was bad, it looked like it was going to rain, and there was little traffic, and I was driving and well, there was a young man walking along the side of the highway.
At that moment, I considered stopping to help him, but something inside me told me not to. Maybe it was pure intuition, and I kept going. What stood out was that on that stretch, both behind and ahead, there was nothing. It was a pretty desolate area, so it really caught my attention that I was walking there alone and slowly. As if it was nothing anyway, it could be possible. Let's suppose it was just an ordinary person.
I stayed in the car, but I was left with that feeling of whether I should have stopped or not, but I was scared and well, I kept driving. A storm was seen. I stopped under a bridge on the highway right where the detour is to go to San Juan, and I stopped there. There was a guy, a motorcycle, also stopped there for shelter under the bridge. I was there because of the hail, because I thought if the hail got here, so I stayed there. I started talking to him, so I said, look, this and this happened to me. Do you know that I saw a guy? And I say, and he tells me, look, I'm going to tell you a story. He says, my dad was a truck driver, and he told me that once there was also a guy hitchhiking. A man picked him up. It wasn't a young guy, it was a man. He picked him up in the truck and took him. He was talking and told him that he had a son who had died, run over by a car. And this man told him, well, that shouldn't have happened. But this man says he had a smell, a nauseating smell. Until they get to a place and he says, I'll get off here. He stopped, the guy got out and told him, if you ever have a problem, just call on me. And he gave him a name that I can't remember right now, but it was a strange name.
Like this story, you hear many more, mainly about highways and different experiences that people have. In this case, it really stuck with me because I immediately thought of that person I saw walking so strangely by the side of the road. I decided for some reason to keep going and not pick him up. My question is, what if I had stopped? Maybe it was, as I said, just a normal person, but what if it wasn't? Disappearance. It was a kind of test that would bring either a reward or maybe something worse into my life. It was a temptation where the prize would be something bad. I'm not sure, but from what I felt when I saw it, I suspect something strange was behind it. My second experience happened to me once, a few years ago, when I was coming back from Brazil. I had been living there for 4 years. On my way back, I stopped in Concordia, Entre Rios. Partly to rest, to check the car because one of the front lights was failing, and also to visit an old friend whom I hadn't seen in a long time. Concordia is a beautiful city which I love, and for me, since I like fishing, it's a paradise. So I accepted my friend's invitation and stayed for a few days. But the thing was that those days turned into weeks, ending with me renting an apartment to stay and live here. Something unexpected that wasn't in my plans. A pleasant surprise being somewhere I enjoyed with friends. And, to put it simply, the day I was about to rent the apartment, something curious happened. Whenever I could go see a new place, I would find out what the neighborhood was like, what the neighbors were like, if there was a lot of noise on the street. For example, simple things, but for me, since I like peace and quiet, they're very important. And that morning, before renting the apartment where everything happened, I spoke with a girl who was at the building's entrance with her baby. A new and pretty nice building, one that wouldn't make you suspect anything. I asked her about the place, and she, who lived in the building, told me that everything was quiet and that I shouldn't worry. But you know what? Something in her look, In the way she spoke, in her expression, something I don't know what made me suspect that she wasn't telling me everything. Maybe I was wrong, but I know I wasn't. About a week later, I moved into this building. And although everything was normal and without problems at first, over time things changed and completely for the worse. I started hearing noises at night, in the early morning, and during the day. And I'm not exaggerating when I say they were very loud bangs, also like chains or furniture being dragged from one side to the other. It was unbelievable. These sounds became unbearable, and even though they could be heard on the sides, they mainly came from above, as if the tenant in the upstairs apartment was constantly working on something.
So I buy a small camera, tie it to the end of a fishing rod, and I say, well, I open the window and use the fishing rod. I'll try to film to see what's happening up there and what they're doing. So I buy a small camera and make it. When I opened the window to film, the noises stopped. Once I closed it, they started again. I tried recording them with my phone, but the noises always stopped.
You might say they didn't want to be filmed or recorded, but that's not true since they didn't know what I was doing. I never got the camera out the window, just like I told you, because as soon as I opened it, everything went silent, so the noises were coming from above, from below, from the sides, or maybe everything was inside my own apartment. I want to mention that I was never someone who believed in paranormal things. I'm usually skeptical about what I hear, but I still try to find explanations. But in this case, it was beyond me because there was no way to come to a conclusion. I even talked it over with a doctor friend to rule out any health problems, and everything was fine. I checked every part of the apartment: doors, windows, floors, furniture, and appliances. I even checked the elevator to see if maybe some vibration or something was being transferred to my apartment. And nothing I tried to find bore any fruit. I was actually even more confused than at the beginning because all the noises continued. I talked about it with my daughters many times. They live in Santa Fe, but I had no way to prove to them concretely what was happening.
I would tell them. At some point, I was able to record it. I left the computer on all night and managed to record the noise. So I sent it to them, but I could have recorded or made up the noises myself, right? The point was for her to know. She told me, no, Dad, you can't live there. Come here. Don't stay there. Well, it turns out that one day the noise upstairs was just too much. I would leave my apartment, and next to the elevator door, there wasn't a sound. I went back into the apartment and it was a mess. So, a little more. I wanted to move the mattress to the hallway to sleep and have some drinks, since it wasn't possible inside. So why didn't I have it? I didn't have a crucifix or anything, even though I wanted to pray or ask for something since I was already feeling it. The noises were ugly and loud, keeping me up all night so I couldn't sleep. One day, frustrated, I go upstairs, knock on the apartment door, but I don't dare and no one answers. So I leave a note stuck to the door saying that I was the neighbor from downstairs. I said I wanted to talk to him, whatever. About an hour later, a man knocks on my door and says, "Look, I'm from the floor above."
Honestly, I was so angry I barely let him speak. I shouted, "What were you doing in the house?" The constant, unbearable noises became too much for me to handle. This man, very calmly, told me that I wasn't understanding anything because he had just arrived at his house, saw the note, and came to see me. He was a doctor and was away almost all day and most of the night, often at the clinic, so he wasn't aware of what was going on. But the key was that he lived alone, so there was no one in his house who could make any kind of noise. This puzzled me in a way that's hard to understand. I didn't know how to respond because I immediately realized that what he was telling me was real, it was the truth, and I can vouch for that. What's more, he invited me to see his apartment and wanted to give me a set of keys so that when everything is over, I can check for myself. That there was no one in his house. Needless to say, I totally believed him and we got along so well that we became friends. About 2 weeks later, he came over for dinner. And here's where there's a very important part in this story. We were in the middle of dinner when suddenly these tremendous noises started coming, mainly from the roof. This man couldn't believe it. He was left speechless. Because if at any point he doubted what I was saying that night, he was able to see that everything was true. He went through it. The noises were unbearable. You might be wondering about this. I finally complained to the building manager, and he was the only one who gave me an answer to this problem, although not a solution, of course. He told me that on that floor, there used to live a man who practiced macumba, that's how he said it. I'm not sure if it was about religion, umbanda, or another type of magic. I don't know much about these. And ever since he left, in many of the apartments, not only strange noises could be heard, without explanation. Things happened that terrified more than one tenant. Some even moved out because of it. The building owner, who lived on the top floor, moved out because he couldn't stand what was happening. Therefore, with this I confirmed that it wasn't just my apartment, it was the building itself that was infested or something like that.
I asked, what should I do? And spoke to him. When I heard noises, I'd put my hands on the wall and call him Blas, my grandfather's name. Blas, let me sleep, I'd say. I didn't do anything to you. Tell me, how can I help you? I would talk to him, I'd say, tell me how I can help you, or how do you communicate with me? I told him, but I need to sleep and all that, you know. From then on, at night, there wasn't a sound anymore. There wasn't a single noise. I held out until morning, and in the morning I would go have breakfast in the kitchen and I would hear the noises. And I would say to him, yes, Blas, I heard you. I would talk to him like a friend. Some days I wouldn't hear him, so I'd say, Blas, are you there? And sometimes he would move a table. Oh, okay, sure, it's fine. I say, make as much noise as you want. Well, I would tell people about it, but no one believed me. One day they invited me to make paella in a shed, and I said I'd bring the pan. Ironically, I was the one who forgot to bring it. So when we got there, I said, okay, but we were about 10 or 15 blocks away. I said, come on, come with me, let's go get it from my apartment. And I had already mentioned something about it, but you know how it is, everyone listens, but nobody believes you. So we got there, everything was fine. I put my hands on the wall and I say, Blas, I'm here with two friends. If you want to show yourself, you can do it, but I'm telling you, there's no problem. They're my friends, I say. And they started running. Furniture, chairs, everything. We ran out scared, mano. We grabbed the paella pan and fled in terror. My two friends went out, this one from the apartment, well...
I finally left that place. Now I'm in Santa Fe with my daughters, and I really don't know what else happened in that apartment. But surely nowadays the whole building has paranormal activity.
But no. The doorman told me that there are a lot of people who would leave, they'd stay for a while and then leave. And when I was leaving, when I talked to the real estate agency, the same agency told me some people are going to come see the apartment. And I said, I don't have a problem. I'll show them everything, I said. Aren't you going to tell them that there's noise in the building? The real estate agency itself already knew that there was strange noise there that couldn't be explained.